Alright, I've got another NPC upgrade build for you today, and today we're looking at Honest Brute's Milktooth AC. Now this build turned out way better than I was expecting, especially considering that it has overburdened arms, which isn't really a problem surprisingly enough, right? We'll get into that in just a moment, but first let's talk about the main issues with this build. Despite what you might expect, it's actually not the weapons at all. The weapon loadout is surprisingly good, and I only make one small tweak to the weapons, in that I switch one split missile for another split missile, right? That's it. Now, where the issues come in are going to be the frame parts, especially the wrecker arms, and the internals aren't necessarily the best either, and those are kind of where the primary changes are. And I've already mentioned the biggest one is just simply changing the wrecker arms to the Basho arms. The chainsaw desperately wants that high melee specialization because kind of the big issue with the chainsaw is that it's inconsistent, right? You really don't want to have to land the chainsaw more than once. And with the Basho arms, it's extremely rare that you need to land anything after the chainsaw hits, right? It just is devastating with the Basho arms. And then speaking of the Basho arms, the overburdened armed issue. Now, I spent quite a bit of time testing this build and playing with it. And despite having, again, his arms overburdened and even bad FCS assist stats, it didn't matter, to be frank. I just didn't even feel it. I couldn't even feel that I had my arms overburdened. Of course, the flamethrower is obviously going to be a bit more forgiving than most weapons in that regard, or rather a lot more forgiving, because it's kind of an AoE weapon, right? The Morley as well is basically a bazooka shotgun, so it's more forgiving on assist stats, and obviously the assist stats don't matter for the chainsaw or the split missiles, right? And yeah, this build just turned out way better than I was expecting. And it really just took a few tweaks to get it to be a really, really good build. It's actually a ton of fun to play. I really enjoyed my time testing it, and I'm almost sad that I'm going to be moving on because the chainsaw is really fun to play with, even if it is really inconsistent, right? But yeah, that's enough talking about it. Let's go ahead and get into the details. Alright, starting with the weapons, as always. Now, I've only made one minor change to his loadout, but I'm going to go over everything, right? Now, start at the flamethrower, the Bad Cook. This is a pretty good weapon, despite the fact that I absolutely hate it because it hurts my eyes, but it's a pretty good weapon. It does quite a bit more DPS than you probably think it does, and it applies a very, very good status effect, right? ACS anomaly makes enemies take more impact damage, right? Very, very good, very strong. Again, it does hurt my eyes, but I hate it. And now, moving on to chainsaw, this is a weapon I kind of both love and hate. It absolutely does a ton of damage when it works. The problem is, it doesn't work a lot of the time, right? It's incredibly inconsistent. Enemies will just fall out of your combo, or they just won't work for some reason. Sometimes you can have the chainsaw inside of an enemy and it just doesn't hit. It's an incredibly inconsistent weapon. It is what it is. It does function as a shield while charging, which is nice. It's got 40% like damage and impact reduction, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it's 40%. But if it was just more consistent, it would be maybe not the best melee weapon in the game, but it would be up there, right? Now, moving on to the back units. First, we've got split missile launchers, and this is the one change I did make from his original split missile launcher to this one right here. Now, this is another weapon type I've talked about before that I'm not the biggest fan of, because outside of using it for combos and stuff, I find that split missiles can be really, really inconsistent in that they are either really good or really bad, in that they either do a ton of damage and like all the missiles hit, or none of the missiles hit. At least that's my experience. And that's why I prefer this particular split missile launcher over the others, or over this one, I guess, because it has a longer delay between firing the two missiles. So a lot of times, if your opponent tries to dodge the first set of missiles, they'll get hit by the second. I just find that this one is far, far more consistent than this one, although it's still pretty inconsistent in my experience. Again, except for using it in combos. And then finally, for the last back unit, the Morley. I've talked about this one before. It's really good. Does a ton of damage. Does a ton of impact. Does take a pretty, a good chunk of time to actually fire the thing, but it's really good, otherwise, right? And this is probably going to be your main way of actually getting staggers on this build a lot of the time, because especially with ACS anomaly applied, this thing just, if you hit somebody with it, they're staggered pretty much, right? It's really, really good in that regard. And yeah, that's really all there is to say about the weapons. Let's go ahead and move on to the frame parts. I've got more changes to the frame parts than I'm used to having recently, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, first for the head, the appetizer, switch from the original wrecker. Main reason being here, or I guess a couple of main reasons here. extra energy defense, extra attitude stability, and extra system recovery. These are all really important stats, and especially the energy defense. This build is already really lacking. So I wanted extra energy defense, and it just so happened this head kind of fits really well in theme. It kind of saves a little weight as well. It doesn't add any extra energy drain really. And again, you get those extra defenses, right? And moving on to core, I left this alone because the record core is something that I didn't realize until recently. It's a really good core, especially defensively at least. For its weight, it's got really good AP, pretty good defenses across the board. The energy defense isn't the best, which is kind of where that issue I mentioned earlier comes in, but it's decent enough, and it's got good attitude stability. Now, its other stats aren't amazing. The booster efficiency, the generator output and supply, not amazing, but for its weight, for its energy load, good enough. This is a very, very solid core. Much, much, much better than I realized. I'm pretty sure it got buffed a while back, and I just never paid any attention to it, right? But yeah, this is a surprisingly good core. It's really good. And moving on to the arms, the Basho arms. Kind of mandatory for this build, in my opinion. Luckily, we don't need firearm specialization. We also don't care about the fact that we don't have enough arms load to carry our weapons, because all it affects is tracking, and that doesn't have a big effect on the flamethrower or the chainsaw, obviously. So it doesn't matter that we're we're over arms load limit, but that melee specialization. With this build, in my opinion, if you land the chainsaw, you want the opponent to be dead, because the chainsaw is so inconsistent that you really don't want to have to land a second one, right? You really don't want to have to land more than one. It's just so inconsistent. So maximizing that chainsaw damage is just, again, mandatory in my opinion. Now, for the legs, switch out the original Wrecker legs or the Tian Chang legs. Main reason here, just being extra defenses, right? Now, of course, we do lose some attitude stability. Part of why I switched out the Wrecker head or the Appetizer head to kind of make up for the attitude stability we lose here. But the extra defenses on the Tian Chang leg are really, really nice. It kind of fits appearance-wise as well, which is kind of another reason why I was fine switching these out, because they don't look that different. They still look kind of in the same theme almost. And it just really needed those extra defenses, right? It does, slow the build down just a little bit, but not enough to matter, right? Also, it saves a lot of energy load as well, so we get much better energy supply efficiency. You see here, we get over 1,000 supply efficiency by switching to the Tian Chang legs. Another big factor as to why I switched to these legs instead, right? The Wrecker legs just drained a lot of energy, right? And yeah, that's all there is to say about the frame parts. Go ahead and move on into the Eternals. Now, first with the booster, I switched his original booster, the Mule, out for the NGI-001. I don't think this is really much of a surprise here. The Mule just has bad thrust stats across the board, so it's a really, really slow booster. It does have a pretty low quick boost downtime, which is nice, I guess, but it's just bad. It's just bad, right? It kind of does have, good upward energy consumption and good melee attack consumption, but that definitely doesn't make up for just how bad it is. It is really low weight and low energy load, to be fair, but it just doesn't make up for how slow it is, right? Now, the NGI-001, on the other hand, I'm sure you're all familiar with this booster. Obviously, it's incredibly good, really high thrust and quick boost thrust, good quick boost stats, good quick boost reload weight, really, really, really good booster all around, right? Now, moving on to the FCS, I don't remember what the original was, but I switched it out for the P10 SLT. Obviously, this is for the split missile launcher. They don't have the shortest lock-on time in the world. Let me double check. What is it again? I don't even remember. 2 seconds, which while isn't the worst, it's also not ideal, and you don't want to be waiting on your missile to lock on for a long time, right? So switch it out for the P10 SLT. Also, just don't really need much assist on this build at all. It's for the same reason that the arms overburden doesn't seem to matter very much. The flamethrower just kind of hits. It's got a pretty big hitbox, in terms of where the flame actually affects. So you just don't need that much assist, right? And finally, for the generator, I switched out his original for the Hokushi. Can I say? And I know I've been using this generator a lot, but it is really just incredibly good. Kind of the biggest downside to it is you do really want to have, really good supply efficiency to make the most of it. But it's just a really good generator. Low weight, high energy output, good energy capacity, good base energy recharge, or energy capacity, I mean, and the energy recharge delay isn't that bad, right? It's just an incredibly good generator all around, and it was just the most fitting by far for this build. I considered, something like the Santai, but what can I say? It would just be incredible. Like, it's got a good base recharge delay, right? And it's got a big energy meter, but the energy recharge, you know, factoring in supply efficiency was quite a bit slower overall. And I just felt the Hokushi ended up feeling way, way better. And also this does slow us down just a little bit, enough to start affecting our quick boost reload time, but not enough to really matter. But I just felt like the Hokushi just felt a lot better overall, considering, you know, maybe like the V20D, but 1.4 second recharge delay is just brutal. It's also even heavier than the Sentai, so ended up moving away from it and just sticking with the Hokushi. This thing is just incredibly good. It works in the majority of builds. Just really, really good generator all around. And finally, for the expansion, he has on assault armor normally. Obviously, I saw no reason to change this, so I just left it alone. That's all for the build. As always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take it easy and hanging around for a minute to catch some more gameplay footage. Take it easy and have a good one, everybody.
There's your way in. Brute can't be far.
We should keep an eye out for traps. They'll be much more dangerous in tight quarters.
Jump down there and we've got him cornered. Don't forget, the guy's a rat. This won't be smooth sailing.
Was this place some kind of hangar? The target AC must be nearby.
Ah, my new friend. You're here at last.
Fruit!
Ah, Carla. You've introduced me to such wonderful people. Wonderful things.
Shut up, tourist.
The sweet melody of the generator. My friend, this is a gift. Thank you.
Enemy AC is silent.
Looks like he's dead. Good. All right, tourist. I'll see about retrieving our secret project. We'll need it to go worm hunting.
Main system, activating combat mode.
Let's get started, Raven. Master Crown's pilot, callsign King, has an 89.6% mission success rate. His reputation for finesse is such that he's advertised as the ideal mercenary. Umbrox is piloted by Chartreuse, an aggressive bulldozer with unrivaled firepower. Those who've seen her at work call her an unstoppable force. Intercept the 2 targets.
There's our merc. Go take care of the objective, King. I'll clip this one's wings.
Not alone. This is a branch mission. I'll support you.
This isn't right. You're just a Gen 4. You belong in a museum, not an AC. Why won't you die?
Chartreuse! Withdraw! Abandon your AC!
AC Umbrox destroyed.
You're strong. Worthy of your name.
AC Aster Crown destroyed.
Thank you, King. We've lost both of them.
1 AC left, Raven.
Augmented human C4621. We're not here to take back the Raven name. However, we will see if you can do it justice. Our friends have been defeated. Be careful, Raven. Raven's wings.
All enemy ACs destroyed. Mission accomplished.